Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew Geraci, 30-year comic book industry veteran. For 30 years, I was listening to Weezer, the Blue album in 1994, late 94, when I broke into the business. So it's weird to think of that. It's been 30 years ago, but well before that, I was a fanboy of high... I don't know. I was a big old fanboy. So I got this at Dave's Comic Shop in Fayetteville, Florida. Originally retailed at $250 back in 1981, and it's in magnificent shape. I mean, look at that. And for a magazine from that era to last so long, it is on better paper than your usual pulp. So I'm going to tell you why this book really gets me mad. It's such a big disappointment. And, at the time, Roger Moore was my James Bond. I didn't grow up with Sean Connery. And it just was such a disappointment. And I'll tell you why. Painting by Howard Chaykin. Well, it's a Howard Chaykin story, but it's inked so crappy that it takes all the Chaykin out of it pretty much. And I'll show you why, okay? First time I saw Howard Chaykin's name was on Star Wars #1. So, I love that cover. Tom Palmer, did the inks on it. Come on, get in there. Yeah, Tom Palmer did the inks on it. And I think maybe Howard Chaykin designed it. I'm not sure. He has a great design sense. So, and this is a reprint. This is one of those glossy reprints they do that are really great. Look, this was so new that Star Wars didn't even have a standard logo. Like, that could have been in there. And from what Roy Thomas says, they got the rights to Star Wars for like pennies on the dollar because it wasn't out yet. It wasn't proven. Science fiction movies generally didn't do that well. And then when it was revealed to be a space opera, it had a wider audience, and it was great. It was a fantastic movie. I saw it a bunch of times in the theater, and I've seen it a lot of times since. In fact, the original 3 movies are the only ones I really like. I mean because I'm a stodgy old guy, but this came out before, like, issue 3 is when the movie came out, so you didn't know what to expect, and with this movie, they had to do a lot of last-minute changes, and there's also some scenes that may not have happened in the movie, ended up on the cutting room floor, because the movie is still wrapping up. What is this? It says July, but actually, it started around March or something like that beforehand, as far as the production, and it got slowed down because back then, especially, you didn't have JPEGs and all that stuff. There was just the phone and the mail as 2 things that would get changes made. And I like the discoloring of the green there and the red hair, but that's not a big deal. Just on the cover. It'd be interesting if she was a redhead, though. So I remember seeing this, and it looks so different from everything else, and I really liked it. This Howard Chaykin guy. That's beautiful stuff. He's inking himself here. And what's really interesting is he had to do it under a tight deadline because they were still getting fed information that was pending. So beautiful stuff. Do. And the pacing is odd because there's a lot of stuff that wasn't finished yet, because not a whole lot happens in the rest of this book. I mean, there's storytelling like where Darth Vader's choking that one guy. Well, he's taking a sip of something, I guess. I don't know if that was in the movie or not, but who cares? Yeah. One thing about Roy Thomas, he writes these huge, I don't know what, dissertations or musings on how the book came to be. So you see just that much. How about that? That face always stands out to me. The one in the middle there of his uncle. So funny, Star Trek lives inside of a Star Wars comic. But look how beautiful that is. But like I said, nothing's really happening until the end, and that's just because they were flying by the seat of their pants, so you have enough information. And then I saw Howard Chaykin again a couple years later. He did some stuff for DC too, but I was just like, I don't like DC because I was a dork. I'm still a dork, but I'm a more open-minded dork. Well, I saw this painted work by Howard Chaykin, and I have an episode that is devoted to his painted work, and you'll just see how things are blocked out the proper way, how everything balances really nice. And also, when the Hulk magazine ended, it was a Marvel premiere. I had this on my other channel, Comics from My Spinner Rack, inked by Terry Austin, and its layouts by Chaykin. How about that? Oh my gosh, what a marriage! It's really interesting because they both use bold lines, but Chaykin uses like thick, bold, brash lines, and Terry Austin does precious lines. Really ornate. And I even have an episode on the Nick Fury one-shot in Marvel Spotlight. So, ta-da! So, well, so much promise, and it's a piece of shit. It is a piece of shit because of Vinnie Colletta. Now, there's been on older books, like in mid-70s, I've defended Colletta when it comes to when he's taking George Tuska or other artists that don't have a distinct style for inking. It's malleable. But he totally takes all the guts out of Howard Chaykin's art. I mean, look how dead that is. And, well, that's a production mistake on a magazine. They usually were good about not having that happen. So, should say, in memory, instead of Teresa Bond, just say, this issue, this magazine. You'll see why in a minute. I don't like, why is that pink there? So, you can see the difference. It's like a coloring book now. That's kind of neat. That's something Colletta always did, but that's the only thing I'll give him in this book. He just wrecked it. And I'd forgotten about this. I had this magazine, and it's just so dead. It's so dead and flat, and I guess when I saw Howard Chaykin, I thumbed through it, and I didn't know what to expect. And it's a fun movie, actually. I love that. So he tries to break into his car. I hope you have a car. So it just sucks all the... That's so pedestrian. That's so non-committal. You would think with a movie adaptation of this caliber that you'd get a better inker on the book. But I know Shooter and Vinny were super tight. So Vinny ended up with like really sweet deals. He did the wedding issue over Paul Ryan with Spider-Man and Mary Jane. He did the first issue over of the Falcon miniseries over Paul Smith. So there seemed to be a lot of like... he just loved Vinny because he could bang stuff out, and that's not a benefit. And, he does good blushes on women, but that's about it. Two things, okay? Gosh. Hey. It just sucks the excitement out of it. And, it is at this time, they were doing the Incredible Hulk magazine where I showed you that painted art. And it's like, why didn't they do something with that, too? Or at least hide, I don't know. It's maddening. Great pose there. That's a very classic Chaykin kind of panel. Just looking at this gets my blood boiling again. So, but he did layouts, I believe, and I can't decide which is worse, this or the second year of Micronauts, where Al Milgrom worked over Chaykin's layouts, and it's just plain awful. They're both awful. So, like Milgrom was too heavy, and Vince is just barely inking. And this is Howard Chaykin. He's adding a little bit of duotone there. What I think it is might be grease pencil / China marker. But see how bold he spots the blacks. Even with the China marker on there, the grays, you could still, it would still hold up on its own. So that's great design sense. This came out a couple years later, around '83, and it's so striking. And he always has bold blacks, and I had a episode with the Shadow that came out in '86. That's much more Howard Chaykin. A little fun thing here. Papa Ooh Mau Mau, Papa Ooh Mau Mau is like this oldies song. Yeah, so that's how you do a Chaykin page. And the face, see how he does all the facial muscles? Really, just a few lines, masterful. Vinny's just kind of, he's just maddening. So, and really good stuff. So, and by the way, this stuff is very adult oriented. There's a lot of sex and violence. So just let you know, good stuff lasted. God, he was on the book like over 2 years, and he went over. That's when he got hired to go over to do the Shadow, which I gotta see if I can find that bad boy. I just reviewed it. Heck with it. So that's it. It's just a huge failure. It's for people back then. There was no comics culture that was mainstream, and I know that sounds crazy, but when you're a kid back then, you're reading comics, and then when you're a teenager and adult hiding, you hid that shit. It's like if you had a girl come over, you kept that stuff in the closet, literally, and it just wasn't cool. And this is the kind of thing that somebody would look at and say, it's just a comic book. If it looked anything, like this or the other ones I showed you, that would make people stand up and say, hey, wow, comics are really, progressed. So it just bums me out. I'd forgotten all about this, but I'm sort of glad I still bought it, because it does have some memories in it. And I love the 007 right there, and at least the cover's painted well. So that's all. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'll have another episode soon.